Okay? And then finally, law enforcement and the government has to deal with issues of privacy. Okay? Privacy is a very, very, very important issue, and it is one that um, really impacts kind of the cyber world. There were two recent events that really illustrate this challenge and this problem. Okay, the first was the San Bernardino shooting. A couple years ago, there was a guy in San Bernardino, California, and he committed an act of terrorism. He got a rifle, and him and I think his wife or his girlfriend shot a whole bunch of people, and they ended up dying at the end of it. Now he had a Apple iPhone 5, and it was encrypted, and he was dead, so he couldn't give up the password. And the FBI didn't want to just try different passwords because the iPhone 5, among other cell phones, has a feature where if you get the wrong password, 5 or 10 or 15 times in a row, it will automatically brick the device, and then it's impossible to unlock it. So a court ordered Apple to assist the FBI in unlocking that phone. The court ordered Apple to kind of break its own encryption, to break its own security, and Apple really didn't want to do that, because that tool, if it's developed, could be used to do a lot of bad things, right? So just because this one case, it might be used for good, doesn't mean that the technique and the tool and the software just goes away once that case is over. It still exists, and thus everybody else is at risk now too. And Apple wasn't willing to do that. This looked like it was going to head to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court was going to make a decision about whether Apple could be forced to kind of break its own encryption, if you will. But before it got to the Supreme Court, the FBI found somebody else to essentially get around that security feature. It's rumored that the person they found to do that was Cellebrite, which is an Israeli company, but we don't know for sure. It has not been confirmed exactly who it was that was able to break that iPhone 5 security. The other one down there on the list is Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden worked for the National Security Agency, and he essentially got really, really upset at what the National Security Agency was doing. There was a lot of warrantless searches of citizens' data, a lot of warrantless collection of data from all kinds of private citizens. And he got really upset at the government violating people's privacy. And essentially he wrote up a huge exposure of everything they were doing and gathered a whole bunch of classified information from the NSA, leaked it to a bunch of reporters, and then he fled to Russia to hide out because what he did was vastly illegal. But he really showed the world that the United States government was doing some very shady things. They were violating a lot of people's privacy. Now, in the government's response was, if you want security, if you want to prevent terrorism, if you don't want another 9/11 to happen, these are the tools we're using to catch terrorists and prevent terrorism. But the opposite argument is that privacy is important. We have a constitution in this country that the government is not allowed to violate, and the things that the NSA was doing were arguably violating those constitutional rights. So that is an ongoing debate in the cyber world, and it'll be very interesting to see where that debate goes and how it ends up impacting life as an American and how it impacts the U.S. government and law enforcement's ability to collect data and work to stop cybercrime, work to stop cyber terror, and all those associated social ills. So